So, have we finally done it? Have we built an AI that can actually reason like a human? I mean, that was the massive question on everyone's mind when a brand new model seemed to just completely crush one of the toughest tests of machine intelligence ever made. The headlines were going crazy, but what happens when you look past that big, flashy score and ask, does it really get it?
And the excitement was totally real. The creator of the test himself, Francois Chollet, called it a genuine breakthrough. You have to understand, this wasn't just some small incremental improvement. This felt like a huge leap forward for artificial intelligence. And the number that got everyone so fired up was a big one.
88%? That's the score OpenAI's O3 model nailed on what's called the Abstraction and Reasoning Corpus, or ARC. Now, this isn't your average test. It's designed to be incredibly difficult, to require abstract, human-like problem solving. So a score of 88%, that was just mind-blowing. It blew past everything that came before it and was even better than how most humans do. On paper, it really looked like the AI had cracked the code.
But, good science isn't just about celebrating the final score. A group of researchers at the Santa Fe Institute decided to take a much closer look. They wanted to know, was the AI truly reasoning through these puzzles, or was it just finding some clever backdoor tricks to land on the right answer? And that one simple question, is it real understanding, is what this is all about.
Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of the issue. The critical, and I mean critical, difference between just being accurate, getting the right answer, and having true human-like understanding. Because believe me, they are not the same thing, and that distinction, well, it changes everything.
Let me put it this way. Imagine a student who gets a perfect 100% on a really hard math test. Sounds great, right? But what if they did it by just memorizing the answer key for every single problem? You give them a new problem, one they haven't seen before, and they're totally stuck. They've got the answers, but they don't have the knowledge. The researchers suspected the AI might be pulling a similar stunt.
To figure this out, they focused on something they call the intended abstraction. It's a bit of a technical term, but the idea is simple. It's the general, flexible, common-sense rule a human would use. You look at a puzzle and you figure out, the rule is to remove the top and bottom shapes. It doesn't matter what color they are or their exact position, you get the core concept.
And this slide lays out the difference perfectly. On one side, you have that intended abstraction, a simple, elegant rule based on concepts like object or above. On the other side, you have the unintended shortcut. This is some ridiculously complex, fragile rule that only works because it's looking at superficial things like pixel colors or exact grid coordinates. It's a cheap trick, not intelligence. So how do you know which one the AI is using?
Right, so how in the world do you get inside an AI's head to see what's going on? Well, the researchers designed a really clever experiment. They decided to look beyond just the final answer and really scrutinize the process itself.
Here's how they did it. Step 1. Give the AI a puzzle. Simple enough. Step 2. Check the final answer. See if it's right or wrong, just like the original test. But here is the absolute game changer. Step 3. They also asked the AI to explain itself, to actually write out the rule it used in plain English. And finally, step 4. Human researchers sat down and manually read every single one of those explanations to judge if it was a real, elegant rule or just one of those convoluted shortcuts.
And they added one more brilliant little twist to the experiment. They tested the AI on 2 flavors of the puzzles. One was purely text-based, where the grids were just a matrix of numbers. The other was visual. The AI had to look at an actual picture of the grid. As you'll see, that difference turned out to be incredibly important.
And this is where the whole story really takes a fascinating turn. Because when the researchers started digging into the results, that initial perfect image of an AI genius started to show some pretty deep cracks.
Now, at first glance, everything looked fantastic for the AI. I mean, look at this. On the text-based problems, the O3 model was scoring about 76% accuracy. That's right there with human performance, maybe even a tiny bit better. If you stopped your analysis right here, you'd walk away thinking the AI is just as smart as a person.
But remember, they weren't just looking at the final grade. They were looking at the reasoning, the thought process the AI wrote out. And that, my friends, is where a completely different and much more complicated picture started to emerge.
And here it is. This is the slide where the illusion just shatters. This doesn't show if the AI was right, it shows how it was right. And honestly, it's pretty shocking. For almost a third of the answers the AI got correct, its own explanation of how it did it was either completely flawed, just flat out wrong, or based on one of those brittle, superficial shortcuts. It was getting the right answer for the wrong reason. So you're probably wondering, what does one of these shortcut rules actually look like? Well, here is a real example from the paper. The simple human rule was basically extract the main shape. Easy. The AI's rule was this monstrously complicated thing about finding a color that's absent from the first row and column and then cropping a rectangle. I mean, it's just bizarre. It happens to work for the examples, but it completely fundamentally misses the point. It's not thinking. It's just performing a kind of complex, weird pattern matching.
So that was the first big surprise. But then came the second one. Remember that other variable they were testing? Text versus images? You'd think if an AI is truly intelligent, it should be able to solve a puzzle from a picture just as well as from a bunch of numbers, right? Well, not quite.
And the results here were just staggering. Look at that drop. The AI's accuracy absolutely plummeted. It went from a superhuman 76% on the text problems all the way down to a measly 29% when it had to look at visual images of the exact same puzzles. It's like the AI was leaning really heavily on that neat, perfect structure of the text grid and just couldn't handle the messier reality of a picture. But the story gets even stranger when you look at why it was failing.
Okay, this might be the most fascinating twist in the whole study. In a weird reversal, a lot of the times the AI got the visual answer completely wrong. Its written explanation of the rule was actually right. In about 27% of its visual failures, it correctly identified the abstract concept. It's like it knew the recipe but was a terrible cook. It suggests this bizarre disconnect where the AI could sometimes grasp the concept but just completely failed when it tried to apply it in a visual space.
So, let's zoom out. We've gone through all this data, we've seen the hidden flaws. What does this all really mean? Why is this distinction between accuracy and real understanding so important? The core thesis of this entire paper is that just looking at accuracy as a single number is incredibly deceiving. For the text-based tests, that number made the AI look like a genius, way overestimating its abilities. But for the visual tests, focusing only on that low accuracy score might have actually underestimated its ability to at least identify abstract ideas, even if it couldn't execute them. So let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. First, those big, flashy AI scores you see in the headlines, they don't always mean what you think they mean. Second, it seems like these AI models are far more likely than we are to find and rely on these flimsy, superficial shortcuts. Third, true visual reasoning is still a massive, massive challenge for AI today. And finally, and this is the most important one, if we really want to measure intelligence, real intelligence, we have got to look at the process, at the reasoning, not just the final answer. And all of this leaves us with a really critical question for our future. As we start using AI in everything from medicine to self-driving cars, it's just not enough for it to be right most of the time. We need to be able to trust that it actually understands the world in a deep, robust way. So the real challenge ahead isn't just about building smarter AI, it's about building smarter tests. Tests that can tell the difference between a true genius and a very, very good guesser.